Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our International Women's Day webinar. This year's theme is Cracking the Code, Innovation for a Gender Equal Future. Before I hand over to our presenter, I want to cover off some housekeeping. We will have a Q&A active during the webinar, so if you have a question, please post it here, and if we have time, we'll answer at the conclusion of the presentation. We will also have chat set up between attendees and the presenter during this webinar. So if you're having any issues hearing or seeing the presentation, please post on the chat so we can address any issues. Lastly, the webinar is being recorded and the recording will be made available to all members in the coming days. Today, we are very fortunate to have Di Mantell, who will be presenting on this year's topic. Di has risen through the ranks of the Australian healthcare industry to now hold the role of CEO of Celsus, managing the biggest infrastructure project in South Australian history, the Royal Adelaide Hospital. Under Di's leadership, the organization secured the world's largest sustainability loan of $2.2 billion as part of its commitment to environmental and sustainable practices within South Australia. Her forward-thinking approach to sustainability, social purpose, and project management have seen Di recognized as the National Infrastructure Awards as state finalist for the Telstra Businesswoman of the Year Awards in 2021 and is a judge for the Telstra Best of Business Awards in 2022 and 2023 and is currently a mentor for Mentor Walks. She has previously held numerous board positions and is a graduate of the AICD. And I will now hand over to Di.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to join you today on International Women's Day. The theme of this year is Cracking the Code, Innovation and Gender Equal Future. I would first like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from Noongar country in Western Australia, and I would like to acknowledge elders past, present and emerging and the amazing job that the Noongar people have done in looking after the lands and waterways on which we meet today. I would also like to acknowledge any First Nations people joining me today who are fortunate enough to be on the call. Today, I'm going to tell you my story, and in doing so, hoping I'm going to provide you some tools that can assist you in cracking the code. To set the scene, just a quick history about me first. So I was originally an ICU nurse in New South Wales back in Wagga Wagga a few summers ago. I was the youngest nurse unit manager ever appointed in New South Wales at the age of 23. I then moved on to Kalgoorlie to be the Executive Director of Nursing after having experienced a winter running Tumour Hospital where I got to -7. And when I got to Kalgoorlie, my first summer, it was 48. So quite a change of climate. I've had experience of being a principal nursing advisor and implementing some amazing innovations in the workforce for nursing. I was the Perth Executive Director of Workforce for WA Health, and then I was the General Manager for the Fiona Stanley Hospital of running the largest services contract for 25 services at the new Fiona Stanley Hospital, 15 kilometres outside of Perth. That contract was a non-clinical contract, and we were told that nobody would ever apply for it or would ever take up those roles. We had 15 applications, so don't believe that what people tell you. I identify as a mum, a wife, an Oma, a CEO, a female, and I've experienced life in New South Wales, Western Australia, and South Australia. I've also had the opportunity to do nursing workforce work in Queensland, Northern Territory, and Tasmania. For 6 years, I worked in Perth as the General Manager at Fiona Stanley Hospital, very comfortable in getting the hospital ready to open. This was a 783-bed hospital. That was a greenfield site, which is quite new, quite innovative in healthcare, as most sites are a brownfield site, which is a renovation of a hospital previously built. I was getting the hospital ready to open for the non-clinical services when I was headhunted for the role of Operations Director at the Royal Adelaide Hospital in Adelaide. In deciding to accept the role, I had a few things to think about. The role was going to be for 3 years, and the role was to get the hospital from a construction site to an operating hospital. So I was familiar with that and what that meant, having done that in Perth recently. But I had a few more things to consider. I had remarried, and I was now going to propose, the offer to my husband was that I was going to move to Adelaide for 3 years to work, and he and my dogs would stay in Perth, and we would meet every couple of weeks. Not an easy sell. I also was leading an excellent career where I had my full support network around me, and I was very comfortable and knew who I could reach out to when I had difficulties, and I had an amazing team that I knew always had my back. But it was an amazing opportunity, and I thought if I didn't go, I would never ever go. So my friend said to me, but what if you go and it doesn't work out? What are you going to do? And I said, I'll leave. You've got to have an out. I mean, you rarely go to a job where you can't leave at some point in time. So I figured that if I had an out, it was okay and I could make it work. My husband was extremely supportive, not necessarily excited, but supportive. So I was leaving a role in Perth with a large support network to go to Adelaide, where I had no support network. I was moving into an executive role as operations director, and I reported to my CEO, my new boss. I was working in a set of dongers, as many of you will be familiar with, on site. It was very unflash. We were in an area where the toilets were outside in our section of the building. It was stinking hot in summer and it was freezing cold and wet in Adelaide in winter. But it was my new job and I was going to make it work. My first meeting with the state when I got there was not what I had anticipated. I had come from working for 25 years for the state government in a range of different roles, and I had always been generally treated respectfully and engagement was generally reasonably positive. My first meeting, which set the tone for what I was having to work through, I went to a meeting with the state to hear about where we were at in the project. I met with a number of people who would have been my peers. And when they finished the presentation, I did what many of you would do and said at the end, would you please mind sharing the presentation so I can just take it and learn a bit more from it so I know where I'm at. Not an unreasonable request. What I was met with was, no, we can't share it with you because you were used against us. That meeting was 8 years ago and it is still as fresh in my head as if it was yesterday. And I have spoken to the person who said that to me in recent times, and they don't recall that conversation at all. But I was very clear. So I knew that there was no trust in this relationship. So it was up to me to work out what I wanted to do. I could have said, I'm out. I could have said, this is too hard. I didn't have anyone to bounce that off. The person that I went to the meeting with who introduced me said, it's just how it goes. It's like, I can't work like that. I can't work with not having team relationships. I can't work without people respecting and trusting me. And I can't work where we don't have that just genuine basic belief that we're all there to do the one thing. So just to give you a little background about Adelaide. I'm a little unique. Some people may say odd, in that I have worked for both the public and the private sector on a major infrastructure build at the executive level. There are very few people who've had the opportunity to do that, and I value that extraordinarily. It has provided me a massive amount of opportunities that I will share, and I will share some of those today. As the Royal Adelaide Hospital was built as a public-private partnership, the private partnership is required to finance, design, construct, and now operate non-clinical services at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. This was the first public-private partnership in Adelaide, South Australia, and it was a very foreign concept. Previously and normally, and you will be familiar with this, some of you, you will have a construction contract and then you may have a services contract afterwards, but the construction contract is dealt with, and then when that is finished, you hand it over and someone does the services. So our consortium was responsible for that, and I was engaged by the consortium. In my role as operations manager and then deputy CEO, I reported to a board of 10 9 males and 1 female. I reported to 28 financiers, this is banks, both domestic and international banks. 90 to 95% of the attendees at any of those forums were male. None of the leads of any of those banks, international or domestic, were female. And I was responsible for reporting updates to all of those people as to where the hospital was going. The previous person that had done this role was just the project code director, and they had never had an operations person, and they had certainly never had a female operations director. I was also responsible for interfacing with the CE of SA Health, who at the time was a male, and the health minister was also a male. Now, I'm not a fan of the gender card. I've always treated people that you are either good at what you do or you are not. So I have never, ever been fazed walking into a room and being surrounded by males and being the only female in the room. It's just never entered into my head. You're either good at it or you're not. Prior to the building being completed, and it was a little behind time when I got there, I was required to attend some meetings with the builder. So we had 3 subcontractors that reported to us in a private partnership. We had DXC Technology, who do our ICT. We have Spotless, who do all the non-clinical services, and HYLC were the builder. Some of the meetings with the builder had become quite tense prior to the building opening, just with a lot of pressure on everybody to get finished and the state being keen to open. I walked into the room. So I hadn't showed my screen, just to put me on it. Everybody see that? So as we moved into the meetings with the builder, I was aware that, again, I was the only female in the room. But what I was surprised about was the tone of the conversations. So as I sat down, I was introduced to everybody that was there, and I had met a number of very senior people from the builder, and we talked about what we were going to do. And I looked around the room and realized the only other lady in the room was the tea lady. First, I was surprised they had a tea lady. That's a whole separate conversation. But they had a tea lady. So what surprised me most next was not that I was the odd person out, but more the way that people interacted in this forum. I'd never expected people would act and speak the way they did. They were aggressive, rude, and antagonistic, and completely different from what I was used to in government. This was all very new to me and very significant to how I was going to work going forward. It would have been very easy to be intimidated or overwhelmed, but it is really important when you are in these forums, and that is what you are faced with, to not become invisible or become a doormat. It is really easy to sit back and go, this is not my gig, I don't know what to do, I don't like the way they're behaving, I'm just going to withdraw. It is important that you sit there and consider what it is that you can bring to this conversation. Now, I had been in the role for about 3 months this time, and I had never met the majority of these people, nor had they met me. And they were certainly not familiar in their organisation or used to having females in senior roles. So I was slightly in a enigma, I suspect, for more. But what I decided was, what was my superpower in this room? What did I have to bring to the table? And when I looked around the room at these very clever, very intelligent people, I was the only person in that room who knew how to run a hospital. So we are building an 800-bed, amazing tertiary quaternary facility for doing amazing things. The previous hospital in Adelaide had been there for 175 years. So this had been a long time in the making, excuse me. But I was the only person in that room who knew how to bring a hospital to fruition. So in sitting there and listening to them, I was trying to work through what it was I was going to do and how I was going to elevate this conversation to one that I felt comfortable engaging in. When you are in conversations where people are very aggressive and there was a lot of swearing going on and there was a lot of finger pointing happening, it is really easy to join in and swear along with them. I chose not to do that. That is not how I perform in public. I'm not saying I didn't swear under my breath, and I'm certainly not saying I didn't swear when I got back to my office after. However, there and then, no. So it is important to have real clarity on what you believe in and what you are prepared to do and how you will bring people up to your level and not you down to theirs. My traits, which are non-negotiable, are kindness, integrity, honesty, being ethical, and being authentic. And for me, I stand by these traits no matter what. None of those are negotiable. You will be judged when you are under pressure. It is important that you respect others. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to like them. But you need to respect people in the room that you are with. And you need to perform when others don't. You need to be able to walk away from there, and if somebody is reflecting on that meeting afterwards, the first thing that they think about is not what a rat bag you were in that conversation, or how you really yelled and screamed and carried on, because that will get you nowhere as you move forward. Jacinda Ardern was once quoted as saying that one of the criticisms she'd faced over the years is that she is not aggressive enough or assertive enough, or maybe somehow because she's empathetic, it meant she's weak. I totally rebel against that, she said, and I refuse to believe that you cannot be both compassionate and strong. And that's what I believe. You don't have to be there yelling and screaming and carrying on. And I never, ever expected that in a forum where we were discussing getting the building finished and open, that this is what we would be doing. You need to consider what your traits are, and then you need to work out how you are going to progress in your career building on those traits. You need to also accept that some people will never change, and you can invest or you will make a difference. Find the people that align with your beliefs and work with them. Build your own cheer squad of people with like-minded beliefs and ways of thinking. Not everyone is going to be in your tribe. Not everyone is going to be like you, and that's okay. You don't want a massive army of people around you. What you need is an elite strike force of people that you know have your back when the times are tough. You need to be brave and ask for what you want and when you want it. I said to this group of people, excuse me, can I ask a question? And they looked at me like I didn't belong, and I probably was shaking a little when I spoke. I said, I just need to know when parts of this building will be ready so that we can start commissioning so that we can move it forward. You would have thought I was speaking from Mars. They looked at me and like, well, we're not here to discuss that. We're here about talking about solving all these other problems. And I said, yes, but I need to know how can I get the building accessible so we can move to open it. Oh, well, we hadn't thought about that. So we changed the conversation completely for a moment to get the information that I needed to do what I need to do. And then they could go back to having their own conversation. But if you need something from that group of people, you have to be brave and be prepared to step up, even if that's an uncomfortable conversation. So you need to be able to be brave, ask for what you want, and put your ideas out there, no matter what they think. Because as I said, you will have some expertise that they don't have, and you need to draw on that and how that works. Sometimes you think you mightn't be big enough to have an impact. And I just think Anita Roddick does some amazing quotes. And I would encourage you to look her up. But if you've ever been in bed and you're trying to go to sleep and you hear that little buzz, that has a major impact on what you're doing. Don't underestimate that you can make, that you may feel very small in an organization or in an area where you are trying to work through things, but you can have an amazing impact. You don't underestimate the skills that you have. The other thing that you need to think about when you are stepping up in an area where you may feel that you don't have the credibility, the trust of people around you, or that you are considered not appropriate for the roles that you're in. And if we ever want to crack this code, you need to really assess and use your own sphere of influence. When I was promoted to the CEO role, I had been in the role for 3 years in Adelaide, and I had been getting the building ready. We were almost ready to open. And my CEO came to me and said, Di, I've spoken to the board and I think that you should be the next CEO of this company. And I went, and he said, because what we need is we need someone who knows how to run hospitals. Well, that's a good idea. That's a good start. And he was very much from a finance background, an amazing man and very supportive of me, but a finance person. So what he said was, I would like you to take on this role. So the board's going to interview you and they're going to talk to you about it and you need to decide. So I'm thinking about this and I'm reflecting on it that afternoon and thinking this is an amazing opportunity. I never thought this would occur. I was coming to Adelaide for 3 years and I'm now nearly done. My husband was counting up the days. And now I'm going to say to him, I've got this amazing opportunity to stay on and be the CEO of this organization. In reflecting on it, I thought, what is he going to think about this? And what I knew was he would never stop me from taking on an amazing opportunity. However, it meant that we were going to continue being one of Qantas's favourite people, flying frequently to and from Perth, and that we would still be living apart for another probably 2 years. As it's worked out, it's been 5 years, but that aside. So the opportunity was amazing, but what I had to decide was, did I have enough courage to do it? Was I brave enough to step up and do it? Did I have the right support network around me to do it? And was this what I really, really wanted to do? And the answer to the last one was yes. There is less than 4% of women as CEOs of major companies in Australia. 4%. I didn't know that when I was looking for the job, but it still blows me away. And we are getting, the numbers are slowly increasing, but that's just diabolical. I was being promoted based on what I had demonstrated and what the board had seen in my behaviours and in my performance in the 3 years I've been there. So they trusted me and they felt that I could deliver this job. I was, however, aware that as we were moving towards opening this building, Adelaide does not like change. As I said, the previous building was there for 175 years. And even though it wasn't an amazing building in itself, the services provided were exceptional and the quality of service to the patients was without question. The facility itself, however, was beyond repair. They had this thing when I got here where they had an escalator as you get in the main entrance to go upstairs past the reception. So the first thing you get as a person who may be feeling slightly frail or under stress is to get yourself onto an escalator that looks like that to get up to the wards. I don't know whoever thought that was a very clever idea, but if you're ever building a hospital, don't do it. So I've now been offered the opportunity to get to the hospital as a CEO. As I said, new hospital, 175 years for the last one. Adelaide doesn't like new things. They didn't like the changes to the Adelaide Oval. They didn't like the bridge that connected the city to the Adelaide Oval. They apparently protested about that occurring. So I knew opening a new hospital was going to be really difficult from a community perspective, but I really wanted us to connect with the community and do everything we could to make that work. So I accepted the role. My husband was very supportive, which was great. And I took on the CEO job, and I became the CEO the week that we opened the hospital. So in September 2017, we opened to the public, and we have been operational now for 5 years. But when I got there, and as I said, when I went to Adelaide, I didn't have a sphere of influence around me. I didn't have a team around me. But what I did have was I knew I had some amazing connections from back in Perth. And I knew that I could tap into those, and I was confident in my own skills. So again, as I stepped up into this role, that's where I decided I was going to reach out to people that I knew and trusted that would have my back. As I was being promoted, I decided that I was going to appoint a new operations director, and the person that I knew and trusted, I brought from Perth. So one of the team that I had working with me in Perth convinced his wife and his dog that they also should move to Adelaide. So he came across to Adelaide. Greg was my right-hand person, and I knew that I could entrust him with my life, and that whatever we needed to do in that role, he would do. He's like an energizer bunny. He runs at 1,000,000 miles an hour. He does not stop all day until the job is done. And if he can't get someone else to do it, he will do it himself. He is just one of the most amazing people to work with. And he can do that for a while, and then he falls over, then charges up again, and then he goes again. But he was the right-hand man that I really needed to get this role working. So what I wanted to do was that I could tap into my previous team, and I would not be starting from scratch. I didn't need yes people around me, but I didn't want people who tore me down either. So I needed to find people who aligned with my values. So I had the opportunity to recruit my entire team of 10 over a couple of years to build the team that we've got today. I've been able to find my own tribe at work and people that align with our cultural values and my own personal values. And it's important when you are finding the people that you work with, because you may not always have the opportunity to build your own team as I have. But when you are working with people, align with people that align with your values. Find your own tribe, but you don't have to take them home. They don't have to be your best buddies and someone that you want to go everywhere with. You just have to be able to work with them, but find people that you know can work, and be flexible. Just because you don't hit it off with somebody right at the start does not mean that you can't get there in the end. I would also encourage you that when opportunities present themselves, take them. Don't wait to be confident. Confidence takes time to build. Confidence takes time to build. However, identify opportunities that arise and be brave to take them. Seek out people who will support you in taking those steps forward, but don't be needy. Find people that will tell you if you're way off path or if you've done something wrong, but in a constructive and helpful way. Fill the gaps around you, know what your skill set is, and know where you need other support. In my particular team, I have a general counsel who works with me. And what I really enjoy with her is that she brings that absolute screaming attention to detail, which at times drives people insane because it always takes much longer to get work done. But our product that we then put out is at an exceptionally high standard. And I have a lot of attention to detail, but I always like, if we are presenting something to the board or elsewhere, for her to do a final look to make sure we really finesse what we have done and got it. But be aware of what your gaps are. You don't have to be all things to all people. You have to just make sure that you can assemble a team that you collectively can go forward and achieve what the company needs to achieve. I would encourage you to seek out a mentor, whether within your business or outside, perhaps as part of your own professional development. There is an organisation that I work with called Mentor Walks, which does mentoring in an unchallenging environment. So you meet once a month in different areas. They're in all capital cities now in Australia. They're also in New Zealand and in Singapore. And what you do is you meet up with people, you register your interest, you meet with people once a month or once every 2 months, and you are matched up with somebody else and you go for a walk and you talk through your issues. And during that period of time, in a non-confrontational way, you can just have a very good conversation about whatever it is, float the breeze, get some really good feedback, take it on board or not, but get an alternate view, and then consider what you want to do next. I've done it in both Adelaide and in Sydney, and I have found it really enjoyable. And the participants have been really positive in that they've said they don't want to make an ongoing commitment to mentoring, but they would like to get some clarity. And often the clarity they're seeking, they already know what they want to do, but they like to hear someone else reinforce for them what their choices are, that they're good. So I would encourage anyone to take the opportunity to get mentoring if you possibly can. Please also, as you're taking opportunities, don't be a victim. Don't sit there and go, I've applied for heaps of jobs and I never get them. Or I won't get this because I'm a girl, or I won't get this because of something else, or it's already set up for someone. No one is going to seek you out if that's your starting attitude. If you need to get more skills to be able to do what you do, force that out. Give 110% to what it is, what the opportunity is that is presented to you. Look at your CV and see if it's really presented specifically for the role that you're putting in for. One of the most annoying things to get as you are receiving applications for roles is to find that you've been sent a generic application that you have clearly sent to 100 other people. If you really, really want the role, tailor what your skills are, whether they are your professional or your personal skills, and tailor them to the role that you're seeking. This means that shows that you are really interested in what the role is and that you have put some time and attention to where you're going. People may not know that you do voluntary work and that you're a treasurer on another organisation, or that you do mentoring off-site for other things. There may be a diverse range of things that you do outside of your normal work that people don't know about. If it's like health, in health, they only look at the last job that you've done. They go, oh, well, you were a director of nursing before, so you couldn't do these other roles. They don't know that you had done all of these other things before. So make sure people know about the whole you, not just this bit of you that they see on a daily basis at work. And seek out role models. Seek out people that have got the values that align with what you want to do, or that you think are amazing people that have really kicked amazing goals and done great things. So gender diverse teams are the most productive teams for all companies. That is renowned research for people to consider. So if you are able to be in a team where diversity and inclusion has been considered, you will often find that you can be far more productive than in teams that you may have been timid before. So I would ask you to reflect on what your superpower is. What is it that makes you you, that separates you from others? And if you were going into a team, what is the thing that you would bring to the table? My superpower is being told that I can't achieve something and then going and delivering on it, because I hate being told I can't do something. It may mean I have to work my ass off to go and get there, but if that's what it takes, then that's what I do. We recently achieved a $2.2 billion green and social loan for the company in July last year. What that meant for us was that we were then able to have a platform to step off through a broad range of environmental, social and governance activities that we were never able to do before. We were told that they didn't believe that we could achieve a green and social loan in the 4-month period that we were allocated to do it. We did it. We achieved international recognition for the work that we did, and we have now got an ESG platform that is putting our company ahead of many others in similar roles. So don't ever believe that you can't try. Even if you don't get there, don't give up before you start. So some takeaways for you. It's important for you to remember that we need more diversity, equity, and inclusion in our workforce. We need to recognise people for the diverse range of skills that they bring to the table, but you need to make sure that people know about the diverse range of skills that you hold. You are unique, and there is no one else like you. And you need to make sure that people understand that whilst you have some unique characteristics, you are able to step up and work as a team member and bring you to the table. To be believable, you need to be informed, educated, and confident. I would encourage you to make sure that you continue to build on your skills in any way that you can, so that you are not sitting there based on having achieved something some time ago and then not continuing to educate yourself and inform yourself. Webinars during COVID, I think, have provided an amazing opportunity for people to get much more access to education and learning opportunities. And you always learn something when you listen to other people who've had amazing experiences that you have not yet had the opportunity to be exposed to. Gather yourself a toolbox of skills. Work out the things that make you you and things that you can rely on when you are challenged or you have to step up and do new things. Work out what it is. Work out if, in this case, if mentoring gives you additional skills that you can then continue to build on. Or is it something that you need to look out for that you have not done before? But work out what your toolbox of skills are and keep building on them. For people to believe in you, you need to believe in you. You need to be able to tell people in a really positive, not arrogant way, what makes you you and why you make an amazing part of the team and what you bring to the table. If you sit there as a little mouse at any forum that you're in and you don't explain to people what you can bring to the table, then they will never know. I was talking to someone yesterday who I'm mentoring, and he said, oh, I go to the table and I always have to do all these presentations because, you know, my team can't go and do them. And my team get frustrated because they help me do a presentation and they don't see it presented. And I said to him, well, why can't the team go and help you present? He goes, but no one does it. And I said, I do that. And he said, oh, and he's a new manager. So this guy has been in his role for 12 months and I've been helping him through this. Lovely man, very young man, lovely man. So I said, why don't you say to the team, let's all work on this project and we've got to present it at this forum. I'm not able to let you present, but I would like you to come with me so you can see what we present and be part of it. Or if the opportunity avails itself, say to people, here we go. My colleague is also going to present with me today and they're going to talk about whatever it is. He went, oh my God, I didn't think you could do that. I said, of course you can. I said, but you just have to tell the people at your briefing why that person is there and introduce them. So celebrate your achievements and your team achievements loud and often. And small things like that give people an amazing amount of satisfaction where they can see a project all the way through. So you may not be the CEO, you may not be the head of the division, you may not even be the manager of the service. But if you're working on a project with somebody and you would like the opportunity to step up and be seen, ask the person that you're working on the project with, could I come and see where you present that? Can I watch how you present, what your style is and what you do? Because I would like to learn those things. And you as a manager may think, oh, I don't want to do that. But just think when you were in those roles, how you would have valued those sorts of opportunities for you to step forward. And do not wait for the perfect opportunity to arise and go, oh, it's not right now. I can't do it. The kids are little. I'm studying. The opportunity is not right. It will never be the perfect opportunity. A quick recap. I was nurse unit manager in New South Wales in 1993, and I was working, 1983, and I was working as a nurse unit manager in ICU. I had twins, they were 3, and I decided when I got the role of nurse unit manager that I had to get educated because I didn't want to be assessed on just what I did clinically. I wanted to know how to manage things. So I started studying stupidly a 6-year course to get a Bachelor of Health Science Management, working full-time and with twins. I don't know what I was thinking. However, by the time I had finished the course, which progressed from 5 years to 6 years to become a degree, I then had all of those skills and I was able to manage what I needed to do. I was very fortunate I had support to get through that process. But if I had waited until my children had grown up, I would have been in the role too long and it would have been too late to step up and do those things. And I would have missed that opportunity. So don't wait. Please be brave. Don't be invisible. Be clear on what you want to do and bringing people up to your level. And assess and leverage the people who will help you when you ask them. Thank you.
Thank you, Di. Thank you for such an important and relevant presentation. Anybody in the Women in Hire and Access program will probably recognize some key takeaways from this presentation to what we actually learn in the program. So I love that, you know, it matched what we're trying to do with the Women in Hire program as well. So I do have some questions. The first one, Di, is what does International Women's Day mean to you?
I think what it means to me is it is celebrating where we are now at with women. But I think more importantly, and this came to me last year I took a gift along for all of my team. As I said, I've got a team of 10. I've got 6 females and 4 males in my team. And I took a gift for all of the women last year to celebrate International Women's Day. I then got asked by the guys in my team, why didn't they get one? And what it made me think about is if we really want to celebrate what women have achieved or are seeking to achieve, we all need to celebrate that. They didn't get anything this year because I'm physically not there, but they're getting it next week when I'm back, and everybody is getting a gift. It is the opportunity for everyone to celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion. And hopefully that helps bring people forward in a variety of roles and opportunities.
Okay, just had another one come up. Thank you. Do you see any unconscious bias at the hospital? Can you give an example?
Oh, yes. I think the biggest unconscious bias is, I think, just people stereotyping about who fits into what roles. Working in hospitals is a very feminized workforce in the main. However, the further you go up to the precipice, the more males are in those roles. And I think people have predetermined ideas about who fits into what role. I'm very fortunate that whilst we work with the hospital and all the clinical teams, and my CEO of the RAR itself, the clinical, is very aligned with me. We don't have that. We basically just look for the best person for the job. But I have seen people automatically seek out types of people for roles, or automatically thinking that doctors are more important than other people are in roles. And as someone who's worked with medical staff for a very long time, you don't get a high rating just because of the role you fill. It's how you perform in the role that matters to me.
Absolutely. What would you suggest as a constructive way to counteract the often negative stereotype of the term feminism?
I think it's just every opportunity you get to present as you need to present as you want women to be remembered. I think if you want to be somebody who's very aggressive in presenting feminism, or saying that we have an entitlement to things, I don't think that helps our cause at all. I think it is about presenting as you want to be seen, as being professional, kind, empathetic, considered, And I think then people will go, oh, wow, I hadn't considered females in those roles before, but, Di's good at what she does, and I would happily get her to step forward. Quick example. I was requested when I went to Kalgoorlie, I'd only been there for 4 months, and I got asked to be the representative for what was 22 rural health services at the time in WA, and what they were thinking either, and to represent all of those health services at the negotiations for the nurses' wage case. And I said to them, are you sure it's me? I've only been here for like 4 or 5 months. You can't know me. And they said, and all of the regional general managers just happened to be males. Just happened that way. And they said, no, that's exactly why we want you, because we know where you have come from. You are not tainted by anything that has gone before you, and you will be able to step up and represent us at this forum and negotiate on behalf of all rural nurses what we want to get. And I thought, wow, one, they're not saying the opportunity was there for them to represent it, and they chose me. And for me, that was the starting point. I was supposed to go for 6 weeks and I went for 6 months, which is another whole issue. But to think that in that very short period of time, they saw the way that I presented and what I did was the way that they wanted to be represented at the negotiations, I thought was extraordinarily positive. So opportunities do come up, not necessarily when you're looking for it.
Okay, so we have a new one. Recently, a male industry colleague asked us a question about why some women in their company and outside of it were averse to celebrating International Women's Day. I thought this was interesting and wonder if you might have any thoughts on this.
I think until the last 2 or 3 years, it hasn't been as publicly celebrated. And I suspect if you are in an organisation where you are potentially a minority group, it can be quite confronting to celebrate it. Or people have thought for some time it really was about a really strong feminist argument or push for certain things. Where my view is it is about celebrating all the amazing things that women bring to the table in an organisation and in a role. And I think it is difficult for some people to be confident yet to do that. And if you're in a very male-dominated organisation, I can understand why that is difficult. But I think it's about starting and saying, somebody said to me last year, why don't we have an International Men's Day? And I said, because you've got every day. We want one. So I think if you make a little more lighthearted about, it is just celebrating the amazing traits that we bring to the table. And, and the best way to get men on side, let me tell you, ladies, for a forum and gents that are on that call, take morning tea. You can progress your cause a lot over a lot of donuts, a lot of things. So don't undervalue the opportunity of just doing that and starting the conversation and not making it a really confrontational discussion.
Why do you believe we haven't achieved equality despite legislation in place regarding pay?
I was listening to someone this morning and they were talking about the low number of graduates in university who are actually undertaking ICT studies. And out of all the graduates in ICT courses, 15% are female. I think until the world revolves, I think the world has taken major steps in the last few years. And when I certainly talk to my grandchildren and my children, I think they can see that the world has moved a really long way from what my mum would have experienced in her work, where we were very, very stereotyped. I think it's unfortunate that we have to move to legislation to make the change. But I think for some organisations, that's the only way it's going to happen. I still think people will be judged on merit. And if you meet all of the skill sets first that a role requires and you happen to be female, then I would really be hoping that now 90% of organisations open up their doors and will accept people as a female. The female representation on boards is just horrendous. The female representation numbers of boards, we are less than 20% of chairs of boards are female. And that hasn't moved. And they said it will be 100 years before we get equality in board representation. I think it is small steps, but I think if each of us takes a step, we are a step closer. And I think that it's not someone else's job to do it. We need to be able to influence our area. And if we all do that and we bring our children up to recognise those things, and I think those ads that are on television about, what is acceptable for females and what's, with males, I think they are all making little differences. And hopefully we won't have to have an International Women's Day in years to come. Hopefully it will just all be all that.
I love that. Do the stereotypes of male doctors and female nurses still exist? And is it changing?
I think it is changing. Yes, it does still exist. But I think it is changing. I think it's quite slow to change. I know when I was nursing, one of my favourite friends there was an orthopaedic surgeon, and she was the first orthopaedic surgeon ever in Australia that was female. That's not that long ago. And there are still, if you ever get to listen to some of the female surgeons speak, they still do it really tough. There's a story about one of a colleague that I know from the RA, who went to the change rooms in a hospital, not at the RA, and when she was doing her training, and all the change rooms for doctors were male. They said, you can go and change in the other change rooms, which were the nurses' change rooms. So little things like that out there still exist. I think they're getting better. We certainly have male and female change rooms just generically now. We don't have doctors' change rooms and nurses' change rooms. And we are also looking currently at unisex change rooms for those who would prefer those. But yes, it's a fairly, it still remains a highly feminized workforce, nursing, and medical training is very still highly medically oriented. And a lot of people are told in medicine, I know, that you can't choose certain specialties because clearly you'll leave and have babies and not come back, so it won't be worth your training. So yeah, it still exists.
So this next question is not for me, I swear. Those of you that know me might think that this is my question, but it's not. Do you feel that women need to disconnect from displaying emotion to be successful in a male-dominated workplace? Do you have any advice on this?
No, you don't need to be completely robotic in the way that you perform at work. I think if you take my Jacinda Ardern quote before, displaying kindness and empathy are not poor traits. You need to not be a blubbering mess in front of people that you're presenting to. If you're presenting to a board and you completely break down, they will wonder what they've got. There is no doubt about that. There is a book called Leading by Design by Colleen Callender. Colleen is the CEO of Sports Girl and Suzanne. And she talks about her journey. The book was only published last year. It looked very attractive on the book has two things in my favourite colours of black, white and pink, so it will look good. Colleen talks in there about kindness and empathy and how you perform and display what you do. You need to have a balance. You need to be able to be clear about what works for you and what doesn't. And if you need to take a moment to recollect your thoughts and things, you should go and do that. Because what you want to be is professional and respected. But what you don't want to be is a robot. So you've just got to find that mix between those two. But kindness is a trait that people will value. And everybody's got their tipping point. You just need to make sure that you can balance when yours tips and that you don't put yourself in a situation where you are so vulnerable that it will be something that people remember you for in an inappropriate way.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from anyone? Don't be shy. No? Okay. Well, I just want to thank Di. I want to thank everyone for attending. We've loved having you, Di. So thank you so much for giving us your time today. It's been very valuable for all of us. As always, the national office is here to assist you in any way. So if you need to, feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Di.